and I say to myself, this is not a life and death issue. You know, this isn't make or break. It's an activity. It's just something they want to do. Tell you what, we'll have the conversation, but then I want you to decide. I'll listen to you. I want you to listen to me. But then you're stuck with making the decision. I'm not going to make it for you. So let me tell you a quick story. I'll try to do it quick. Our son was small. You heard that Sunday. No, I don't. He's small. But he made the city soccer team, which was, an all-star team. It was crazy. I don't know how he did it. I think they felt, I don't know what. But he made the traveling team of they picked them from various teams. He made the all-star team, and they got to go up to 2.5 hours away for a weekend soccer tournament that started on Friday night, stay overnight. He's 10 years old. Woohoo! This is big stuff, babe. Ride in a big bus, go on all night. This is a big deal. And he got picked for the team. We're all excited. And then they play Friday, and the winners then play, and it's a, if you lose, you're out kind of thing. And then on Sunday morning was the semifinal, and if you won Sunday morning, you got to play for the championship Sunday afternoon. Well, I found out about that, and I said, he says, so Dad, I got picked. And I said, man, I'd love for you to, he was 10. I'd love for you to do that. Let's talk about it a little bit. Tell me how it's going to work. Well, and Sunday morning, if you have not been eliminated yet, you play on Sunday morning, right? Yeah. Well, what do we usually do on Sunday morning? Oh, we go to church. I said, well, what do you think? And I think, I don't remember, but somehow in there I said, tell you what, this isn't a make or break deal. Okay, our habit, our tradition is that Sunday morning is reserved for our time with the Lord and the people of God. However, I'm going to let you make the decision. If your team wins and gets to play in the tournament on Sunday morning, I just want you to decide. So I'm pushing him out of the boat. Well, turned out his team did win on Saturday night, so they had to play on Sunday morning. And another kid from our church also made the team, and he went to the other, what I did in the meantime, I called the pastor, the Nazarene pastor in the church in the city where the tournament was going on, and I said, my son's going to be in town playing on a soccer team. If they win, he's probably going to play on Sunday morning, but he's wrestling with if he should go to church or play, and I don't know what he's going to do. So I alerted this pastor, and so on Sunday morning, he said to his friend Todd, he said, I think Jesus wants me to go to church. Oh, and I told him, I said, no, I was a coach, and if you miss a game, if you choose to miss a game, that's going to really jeopardize your ability to play anymore after that. If you skip Sunday morning and the team wins, I don't know if the coach will even let you play because you skipped the game that got them to the championship. So I put that all in front of him. So on Sunday morning, he says to his friend, he says, I think the Lord wants me to go to church today. Would you like to go? And the friend said, I'm not sure, but something like, you're kidding. And then Dave said, no, I think I should go. Friend went with him. They got a ride to church. So here comes these two urchins with their soccer uniforms on. The pastor sees them, recognizes it, knows the backstory, and he says, come up here. And I can't tell it. And he interviewed them and made them tell what was happening and why what they were supposed to be doing right now, which is playing for the semifinals of the soccer championship of this tournament. But they had determined to go to church, and that out of that story, about I don't know how many, much of the church flooded to an altar and repented because of the example of two little kids that prioritized time with Jesus. Now, had he chosen to go, not to go to church, I gave him my blessing. It's your call. Because I got to quit controlling them. That's the problem. Parents keep control too long. But they don't do the first processes well enough, so they can't trust the kids. So all of a sudden, you don't start parenting at age 15. You start when they're 1/8 of a month. You're on from the earliest moment. So anyhow, but you get the idea. Parent requires that the teen talk through, or the kid. The parent asks questions, offers the parent's perspective, but then say, it's your choice. We're letting them go. We've had a conversation. Now, do you trust your judgment or you trust mine? Okay? And you're thinking, that's a lot of discussions. Well, no, it wasn't that bad. There weren't that many discussions. But the principle was well in place. And then finally, the teen is given absolute full freedom. The parent interacts by request only. What that means is, we agreed that by the time our kids started their senior year in high school, that we would never, ever again tell them what to do. They would be living with us, but they would have to make their own choices under our roof. The option is to keep control and then let them make their choices on their own when they're with a bunch of kids in the sorority. So we decided it'd be better to give them freedom under our roof, and then we could talk about it. And of course, if they wanted to talk with us, they could, but we would not impose our will on them again. We made that. We got there by the time they were freshmen or sophomores. We didn't ever tell them what to do. We didn't have to. So you get the 4 ideas. Now, let me see if I've got, now let me just put a little graphic picture here. I used to have, I don't know why I left it out here. But can you picture up here, see a piece of paper, see a screen, up here in the top left corner, think in your mind, relational authority. And it's 100% 0. Relational authority is 100%. How long in your life with your children do you think you should try to establish and sustain relational authority? All their life. They should feel your love 100% their whole life, right? See, so relational authority, loving them graciously, doesn't matter what they do or don't do, you're stuck. I'm going to love you. I'm going to help you. And they need to know that and feel that. I mean, the triplets are 44. We still routinely get calls and talk about the biggest issues. It's you know, and that happens for you too. So that's relational authority. Now, rational authority, start down here in the bottom left-hand corner. When they're born, you have 0 rational authority. 0. 10 relational, 0 rational. You can't reason with a 1-month-old. Would you all agree? Okay? See? So, but that rational authority needs to be climbing and climbing and climbing and climbing until it's powerful in that they trust you enough and they're free, but they want to talk with you because they trust your love and they believe in your wisdom. So your aim is to move that to the top. Positional authority has to start up here at the top. You're the boss when they're 1 month old. And then you very intentionally, as you increase in rational authority, you decrease in positional authority till your goal is to say, I'll never tell you again what to do. You want to get to know positional authority as early as possible so that as friends, as comrades, you talk about their issues, but they're stuck. They have to make the decision. Does that make sense? So that's just a picture. Let me push on here. Here's a story that's, I have to preface this by saying, and here's part of what I was kind of hinting at a little bit when we were talking before the meeting. I'm coming out of, I'm not, it's not quite fair for me to talk with anyone because hardly anyone was as intentional as I was strategically in parenting. And so I have some advantages. And I understand that. I was called to make disciples and I worked on it very intentionally, strategically, and others do it in varying levels. But this story of Deborah, from the time she was 3 years old, we were going out every week having conversations like I described Sunday night, okay? We were going out. She was the curriculum. I was studying her. I was asking her questions, getting to know her. We were having fun, et cetera, et cetera. So we had that. Then we had the family meeting every day that I described last night at dinner time, and then after dinner, or in the morning. And then all of our relationship that was informal out of that, plus all the routine stuff that happened in church. So there was a lot of relationship with Deborah before the event that I'm going to tell you about. So I told you last night that she was not the most popular girl. Remember? I told you that? Sorry, I don't have to remember. But when she started those prayer meetings and stuff. Well, Deborah is my talkative daughter. Dana is my quiet daughter. It was easy to go out with Deborah because I didn't have to think about anything. She just talked. Every once in a while I might try to that was just it, see. So all our life, we go out, and that's her time to unload, and then I'd say, well, what about this? And how do you think? Da-da-da-da, Well, when she's in her sophomore year, she is what I call the ugly duckling, meaning all her life, her brother and her sister had been very, very popular. Her sister was quite attractive compared to Deborah, who was a little bit overweight and felt it, and, in the culture, you know how that goes. And no boys paid attention to her. All the boys paid attention to Dana. Do you remember the story I told you about Dana, the pole vaulter and all that? So Deborah felt all that deeply. And we'd go out on our dates, and I'd be driving wherever we're going, and she's looking at me. She's just talking, and then this happened, and that happened, and then what about that, and what do you think? And she's just going a mile, and that's just how so when we get to our place where we're going to talk, she just goes on and on and on. Until sometime earlier in her sophomore year, I think it was, we got in the car, and she turned her body language this way and looked out the window and didn't say a word. And I'm going, hello, you home? And I don't know if I knew about this going on or not, but one of the most popular starting quarterbacks at the big high school had gotten interested in her. She turned from her freshman year to her sophomore year. She just changed. I say when she was a freshman, she looked like me. When she was a sophomore, she looked like Debbie. She became very attractive just overnight, and all of a sudden, she's getting flooded with attention. Just the way it works. And so she's not talking. We're going on a date. We always talk. She's not talking to me. And so I'm, hello, what's going on? So she just shut down. Well, I had to try to figure out what was going on, and I found out. I had an FBI system. I found out about this guy who was a quarterback who had swept her off her feet, and that he really liked her, and that they were talking and on the phone and doing stuff. So once again, I've got a dating situation with my girls, okay? And I find out, I realize that she doesn't want to talk about it because she knows I'll ask her a bunch of questions. And she knows I'll kind of say, well, tell me about this guy. And she knows that he's a mess. He's popular, he's good, but you pick all the stuff that kids do, he was doing it out of no relationship with God. So I found that out, and so that made sense to me. Okay, she didn't want to talk about it. And so I'd try to dance around and talk about other things, and she'd warm up a little bit. But I knew the second I just barely went there, that would cut the conversation. And we had talked meaningfully. So we pulled into her favorite place, Chili's. And at Chili's, you can get Coke and all the chips you can eat. So it's a cheap date. And you can stay there for hours. So we went in, and I looked at her, and I said, okay, let's just be real here. Something's happened. You used to talk to me freely. Now you've quit talking to me. And I know, I don't think anything's happened between us. Have I done something? No, Dad. Okay, well, something's wrong. We can't talk. And I said, is it? You said the boy's name. And the body language was just, it was just almost like, you see it. Well, she was a sophomore. She was the girl that started prayer meeting. She was a fireball for Jesus. I guess she thought she was going to lead this kid to Jesus. I don't know what she was thinking. And that's when you don't say, what are you thinking? Hear the tone? You might say, so I'd love to know what you're thinking. Big difference. What are you thinking? So anyhow, we're there, and I said to her, tell you what, you have never disappointed us. I think I know your heart. I think you're determined to follow Jesus. So I'm willing to make a deal with you. I know a little bit about what's going on. I said the guy's name. And if you want to talk about it, we can. But let me tell you what I'm willing to do right here. If you will put down your guard and tell me anything and everything that's going on with him, honestly, if you can't tell me stuff I haven't heard 10,000 times, what's going on between you, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're wanting, tell me your heart. And then if you'll let me ask you questions, or even if you'll hear my thoughts, I'll make a deal with you. If you'll give me your heart, I'll set you free. If you'll just be willing to talk with me. I won't tell you, you can't go out, you have to be, I will set you free. As long as you'll be honest, open, tell me everything, let me critique what's going on, let me ask questions, let me tell you what I think, and then you make the choice, and you'll be stuck with the consequences. Now, if you do what I recommend and something bad happens, I'll take responsibility. If you do something other than what I'm recommending and it goes badly, you're going to live with the consequences. I'm not going to bail you out. My wife cringed when she heard this conversation. What I did was, I put into action what we had already planned to do, which was to give them freedom. But this was under the third level. We'll talk. And I put a little asterisk under the third level of where we talk, but you decide. And the little asterisk was, but if I think it's going to kill you, I won't let you decide. But I didn't even put that asterisk. I said, you're smart, you love Jesus, but if you'll talk with me, that's the deal. If you quit talking, I'm going to come back in as the bully. I'm going to take authority again. You know what she said? Okay. She liked the idea. Instantly, she started talking with me. Instantly, I started asking her questions. Instantly, I gave her my perspective when we couldn't come to hers. And within a couple of weeks, she'd broken up with him. Now, that's a glory story. But it's a good story. But it probably wouldn't have happened had we not been really working on relationship all the way along and learning how we're going to relate and how I was going to be an authority in her life, but gradually that was going to go away and we would depend on reason. I would always love her, relational authority, but I would reason with her and give her more and more freedom. And on that day I said, you're free. Make sense? I mean, I don't know if you agree with it. Yeah, you might think I was ridiculous. But I'll tell you this, I had influence, I had power in her life because she was willing to talk with me. I was willing to give her freedom if she would be willing to talk. That's me. I thought that through. You know why? I haven't had this thought until just now. I think the reason I came up with that is because that's how I wanted to be treated. I didn't think about that till just now. I imagine I pretty much wanted to be treated that way. Okay, that's a long story. Any questions or comments real quick? Okay. Okay, all right, let's push ahead. The parents' purpose, now there's more than this, but we want to establish Jesus' authority in our children because of the verses of Scripture I'm going to read to you tonight. We must help our children come under the authority of the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. It's best if they come under because they know Jesus loves them, and Jesus said, if you love me, you'll obey me, right? That's the best. Second best is, if you trust me, you'll obey me. If you have confidence in me, you'll do what I say. If you don't do what I say, you don't really have confidence in me. But ultimately, the bottom line, there's going to be times when kids don't feel love for Jesus. They're not on a high. It doesn't make sense to them. And the only thing left will be for them to enact to their will, to say, I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided. Act to my will. I trust Jesus. I'll follow him. Okay? So, and the Great Commission says, and apply it to the parents of the church or the grandparents, it says, go make disciples, baptizing them, teaching them to obey everything. So parents, we're responsible to do this. And I will tell you, I'm sure you're all well aware of it, this is not the norm in our culture. Okay? This is not the norm. At least it hasn't been. I've been out of the culture for 10 years in the terms of really working with the day-to-day stuff. So let me push through it as quickly as I can. Here is, and write this down if your husband just walked out. This is the big theological point. The way God sees obedience is altogether different than the way we see obedience. We see obedience as performance. If you perform well on the team, you play. If not, you sit on the bench. If you perform well at work, you get a salary. If not, you get fired. If you get A's at school, you get complimented. If you get F's, you get kicked out. We operate on performance, not God. Not God. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. It's huge. See, from God's point of view, obedience is the child's attitude toward him. More than that, from God's point of view, your attitude toward him is, if he sees an obedient heart, a heart that is determined to obey. In other words, it's a relational word. It's an attitude or a position toward God that says, whether I love you or whether I trust you or whether I've come under your authority, I'll use this language, I have decided that you're God and I'm not. And God knows if that's the condition of our heart. We measure the performance. We get all upset about our bad performance. We get arrogant when we think we've accomplished something. We take credit. Man looks on the outward. God sees the heart. We have to understand this. When you look at your kids, you have to understand that you want to see them the way God sees them. I could tell you a bunch of stories how when I saw my kids, when I saw my kids, I did my best to look at their intent, to look at their motive, to discern the underneath. The fruit, it stunk. It was bad at times. I wanted to see, were they rebellious? Were they indifferent to Debbie or me? Or were they ignorant or just had bad habits? When I get told to do something as a Christian, it's kind of new, I've been doing the wrong thing for 40 years. And I got a lot of bad habits. But I can say, yes, Lord, and say, I don't know how we're going to get this turned around, but my faith is in you. But I set my will. You've said it. I have decided. And I'm glad you see my heart. And your kids need to know that you see their intention, because you need to work with the motives. Why did you do it? Why? What were you thinking? And don't say it the wrong way. Did you not understand?